Hello and welcome. These are horse racing selections for Thursday, the 29th of May. I am flatcapcallum and I'm hoping you are all very, very well. All right, we are riding into Thursday off the back of a loss on Wednesday. So we need to do the review because the result was bad. The horses didn't all run bad, but the result was bad. And then Thursday, it's an interesting one because if you look at Limerick and Fairyhouse, there are 7 races paying 5 places with a lot of bookies. Most of it's basement grade stuff, not all, but most of it. And you've then got to chuck in, at the moment, the ground is good or good to firm in places at both tracks, but there's been rain tonight, as in rain Wednesday night and rain on bits on Thursday. So it's very, very hard to make a call on what the ground's going to be. So I've decided to play, proceed with caution, but I'm playing. I'm doing more at Limerick, and I'm basically pitching it on in the good yielding kind of world. If we start getting soft in the title, that could be curtains, but yeah, not always. I've had days where I thought that would happen and managed to get away with it, but yeah, that's where I've gone with it. So it really depends on how much rain and how quickly that rain gets in the ground to what it does to the track. But in total, there are 7 horses on Thursday. There's a horse at Lingfield, Sandown, Fairyhouse, and 4 at Limerick. So we've got an each way patent across the 3 different tracks, and we've got an each way zebra Yankee at Limerick. That is my play. Also, once I've done the tips, I'm going to talk about star system. There was a question about star system in the comments on Wednesday, so I thought I'd just recap. Might tell you something I didn't tell you before. I don't know. So we'll do that. All right. So it was 11.75 on Wednesday. Zippo back. Well backed in. Looked good in running. Faded. Well backed in. Massive hefty raw fall as well. Then. Looked good in running, went off his favourite, won out the placings. So both first 2, both won out the placings. Aiming high, came up on the rail. I think it was Callum Shepherd, got it going too soon. It was a bit of a theme, to be honest. Most of these went going a bit too soon. And then for all the world, that looks like it was going to be a framer, and then it just stopped. Yeah, no good. Arku did disappointing. Danny Muscat really didn't put it in the race. And then Lakewood Rose out the back, dry forward, again all a bit too soon, and then it faded. So nothing back from our 11.75. So we've gone from 7 up to 4 down this week. 4 down after 2 days. So let's go through the Thursday offering. We are starting here. There's some horses here, which might be a bit of a stretch, but they've hit the star system, and I'll talk to you about it afterwards. But 2:30 Lingfield, Catano Breeze, yeah, really interesting horse, and I wanted to play it, and then I was pleased that the star system said it was viable. I think it's trained by Michael Madgwick, I think, and it's William Carson. It's the only all-weather play of the day. Now, the horse ran in a bumper at Lingfield on the all-weather track and actually did all right. And then they've chucked it over some maidens on the all-weather, but much, much shorter distance. The bumper was 2 miles. It's been running over mile and somethings and just not suitable. The horse is 2 miles all day long and a bit. So here you got a bumper horse that went then the flat route and now is making handicap debuts. One of 2 handicap debutants I've got in my 7. And yeah, so if you judged it on the 3 flat runs when it's under flat rules, you wouldn't give it a hope in hell. If you judged it on the bumper run on course and distance basically, then actually you would, albeit they didn't come out of the stalls, you would say this has actually got a good chance. If you actually look at the horses that it ran against and what 1 or 2 of them have gone on to do, there's an argument to say the horse is about £10 well in. So let's see. I've gone back through the analog, or what am I talking about? I've gone back through the, I don't know, the chronicles in the library, whatever, and I found a horse that Michael Madgwick had that actually had a similar profile a couple of years ago, that went in a bumper and then ultimately didn't do anything on flat maiden novices in the 3 runs to get the flat handicap mark, and then won on handicap debut. So there is previous with the trainer of this type of thing. Will Lightning strike? I don't know. It's a basement race Lingfield handicap, but we are playing Catano Breeze 20-1. Then we're going 657 Fairyhouse. I mean, all of my Irish ones probably need some leap of faith, but Lay of the Land, bang out of form, but this time last year they've turned it out loads in May, and it ran about 5 or 6 times in May, and most of those performances were really good, including over this course and distance, but it ran in lots of tracks. Definitely a horse that would want the better ground. So if the water gets in too much at Fairyhouse by the time we get to sort of the 7 o'clock when this race is, then definitely would be less keen. I want really on the better side of ground. So go soft. You have to make a call. I could either have just not played at all, or I'm doing what I'm doing. So that's what I've done. So Lay of the Land, 22s to bounce back to form, because the trainer's riding it, and he did ride it well once last year, but he also had some other jocks, like when it won, it was Colin Keane who was riding us. Just popped in my head. Right, and then we've got in get this right. It's the I think this is the Brigadier Gerard, the Group 3 at Sandown, and this horse Ancient Wisdom is all over the price point. So 8s in places, and then 12s in others. 10s very fair, but a lot of the kind of the big bookmakers, like the normals we would talk about, like your Skies and your 365s, are less favourable on odds. So it's worth shopping around for what you can get on that. I think it was 12s, 888, 11 William Hill, 10s, lots of places. Basically, I don't know what it's 10s. It ran last time in the... Get my Group 3s at Sandown right. Got the Gordon Richards, course and distance. And it ran really well. It was second behind Alarcy. And yeah, when I went through it, I made that second favourite. So it's third string of the Godolphin horses and second string of Charlie Appleby. But I made it second favourite. So yeah, 10-1 I thought was a price worth playing. So we'll see if we can get top 3 with that one. So £7 the bet, 50p each way pattern, each way doubles, trebles, and a singles. Sorry, each way singles, doubles, and a treble. 7 bets. Sky are best for an extra place in the 657. I think they're paying 6 places. That's bet 1. Then the Limerick Zebra bet that everybody wants. This is the one. I mean, I should be charging a lot of cash for this kind of stuff, guys. All right, you know what I'm like in Ireland. All right, so 5:10 Limerick. So we're starting in a maiden race, Elusive Ogie, 20s. Yeah, I just think the market's got that well wrong as far as I would read the race, but who am I to say? Darragh O'Keefe is riding in good form. And yeah, there's a few in there of more unexposed types, but this horse is qualified for handicap, doesn't need to run in this race, but is, and it's a slightly more valuable one than I think it's been running in as well. So yeah, I think 20s is a good price to try our luck with that one. We'll see. Then we're going 6:12 Limerick, Larkin's Lane 20s. This is another handicap debutant. Once turned out this season, didn't do anything. That was its third run in a maiden to qualify for handicaps. The last run of last season, it went over course and distance and did okay. If it can repeat that to the similar standard, then we could be in business here. So I'm hoping it's going to come on from last time and go back to that sort of form. So we'll try our luck with Larkin's Lane. 7:12 Limerick Reflectionist. This one's going to need a stretch because this has not shown anything for quite some time. So when it did show something quite some time, it was a much better horse than what it's rated. It's run well at Limerick before, which I like. I like the fact that Gavin Cromwell's persevering because he doesn't have to, right? He's got a lot of better horses than Reflectionist, but he's persevering, and Keith Donoghue is riding. So good jockey, good trainer, persevering, and the last 2 times it's run, it's been on heavy going. it wants better ground. So as advertised, we want the better grounds to the Limerick. So Reflectionist is in 25s, and then we're going to finish on the bumper because that's what we've done all week, 4 days in a row. Sing My Story, 25 to 1. Sort of unheralded last time. It ran actually a decent race at a very big price. And I think the market's overlooking it again because its form before that was rubbish with the previous trainer. So if it can repeat what it did last time to that sort of standard, then we could be looking at frame potential here. Again, it's one of these big field bumper horses. But yeah, Sing My Story is in at 25s. So some decent prices in here. We just need 2 of them to frame, but it's very, very likely, according to the odds. And I'm obviously, giving you a little bit of a story behind them, but it's a stretch. We need 2 to place to make the profit. 25p each way Yankee, 50p each way singles, 9.50 is the bet. The best bookies, in order to get 5 on those middle 2 legs, because everyone's 3 and 3 here, but 5 places on those 2 middles, you need 365 Sky, Paddy, Betfair, Unibet or Boyle Sports. 9.50 is the bet. So total outlay 16.50. So if it goes terribly, which it absolutely can do at those prices and with this changeable weather in Ireland, we could walk out of Thursday 20 down for the week. So bet what you can afford, right? Probably don't say this stuff enough, right? But I deliberately do small stakes on the channel so that people don't need to feel like they need to do more, right? So if I'm betting 16.50, if you can't afford 16.50, you put 8.50 on or 4.25 or whatever it is, like if you want to play along to the same level. But just be very, very mindful. Last 7 days we had 3 good ones out of 7. But before that, we had a terrible 4 weeks where I was hardly getting anything. So it can go wrong very, very quickly. And that's why you need to have discipline in what you do with your stakes. So please don't get carried away. Anything I bet is what I can afford to bet. It's not like when I say that, I mean as in I'm not like maxing out everything as well. It's like I'm not living on the limit from what I'm doing with gambling. Because I have a pot built up and that's what I use, right? So when you get into a rhythm with these things, you can build up your own betting bank and your pot, and that is what you're using, not your day-to-day money. That means the difference between you having bread and water and something more interesting. So clearly when you win, get a takeaway. We talked about that. All right, anyway, that's that ramble. Anyway, star system. So the question about star system. So when I talk about it, right, so I didn't talk about it before last year because I was developing it last year. So historically, up until last year, the way I would go through races is I'm looking for certain things in certain types of races. So, and you'll know from what I do on the channel, I can be playing bumpers, I can be playing maidens, I can play handicaps, I can play flat, all weather, jumps, and I keep records of all the different types of discipline to ensure I know where the margin is or isn't. So if I feel like I'm going wayward, and I've been at it years, right? So I've built up lots of experience of looking at things, so I can look through a race sometimes very, very quickly and form a very quick view about whether there's something in the race I want to play or not. So what I normally do, this is before star system, I'd go through all the racing of the day, and some races I wouldn't touch at all, and others I would. And over the years I've adapted that, so there are some types of races I now look at that I wouldn't have done, and there are other types of races that I used to look at and now I ignore. So I don't look at every single race, as in I'll see what type of race it is and then make a decision about whether it's one I would look into or not into. So I kind of go through all of the racing for the day, and I make myself a short list based off a quick scan through, are there things in there? Now what I'll then do is a secondary scan, if you like, of any races where I think there is some sort of mathematical edge. So I'll pay more attention to bad each way races where there's a odds on favourite pushing value up, and I'll pay more attention to the extra place races, particularly when they are of a higher class or grade. So I'll look through those as a kind of a secondary in a little bit more detail. to then add anything else to my shortlist. I then get my shortlist. So historically, that's what I do. I get the shortlist, and then if I was doing the for the channel originally, it would be around okay, what types of horses form what types of bets. So I have certain types of bets. It's evolved on the channel. I evolve what I do myself. But when I started on the channel, there were certain types of bets I was using, and then over time of the channel, I've ditched some of them because either the margin sort of became too difficult or very minimal. So I try and play the higher margin types of bets. What I mean by that is long term, a better return on investment from those bets. So I'm trying to play things where I think I can get some sort of double digit long term percentage. Now I'm saying that out loud, and clearly that's not been achieved yet this year, has it? Nor last year. So I am very aware of that, but that's what I'm aiming to do from a channel perspective. I just will never promise or guarantee anything. So I've got my shortlist. So historically, I would then go through and go, which ones of those do I think are the better ones where I put on the channel, and what type of bet would I put them into? What I did, I guess, when I started the channel, I had a lot more time, and I had more time to play more angles, more time to do research, more time to vary up the bets and things. Then, sort of, I have less time. I've got family commitments. I have a day job that isn't this. This isn't my day job on YouTube. I have a day job that isn't this, and that's how I choose my life to be. I don't want to do full-time gambling. I have given it some thought over the years many times, but it's not something I want to do when I've got a young family, in terms of making that my primary source of income. So I've got less time. So what I've been doing in the last couple of years whilst the channel, and obviously I've had a few breaks in there as well, is trying to work on systems and processes to speed up selection, in order to save me time, but also to try and ensure what I'm putting out on the channel is more quality and slightly less quantity. Now I put out quantity. I'm putting out 7 horses today and 2 bets. That's more than most people do. But for those of you who've been around a while, it used to be common practice on here for 4 or 5 bets a day, as in terms of 4 or 5 different multiples a day, like lots of horses. So I'm trying to work out how to streamline. So in order to streamline some of it, I, as well as my ongoing things where I review what types of races I play and what I don't play. So, this year, as an example, I'm literally hardly touching anything 3-year-old only on the flat, and I'm not hardly touching anything that is nothing 2-year-old on the flat really, unless it's by exception. 3-year-old on the flat, even handicaps by very small exception, I would be including those. So there's things, whereas last year I was playing some more of those on the channel, as an example. So I wanted to come up with a way of how do I more quickly ascertain whether or not I've got a horse that I want to play on the channel, and how do I distinguish between the ones that are really good and the ones that are more marginal. So last year I set about creating some form of star system. So I had it in my head, right? So if I build something, some sort of set of criteria, so I know what I'm looking for, but this is sort of like a checks and balances, if you like, because what I'm looking for, I guess it's slightly subjective. It's years of experience of going through races and going, well, I can see in the conditions of that race, that would be the horse that I'd want to back and whatnot. So come up with some criteria. So I started by using then a set of criteria, like some stuff that people would think about, like course form, how did it run last time out, that kind of stuff. Jockeys, are they in form, all that kind of stuff, right? So normal sort of criteria of things. And then as I evolved it last year, this is all stuff I was doing off the channel while I was on a break. I then started to kind of look at, okay, so if I've got all these criteria, I need to then do a simplified scoring system where I mark a horse up for this or mark it down for that. And
And then if I did do that, is there a certain threshold? And I started by going, okay, so can I make it into 5 stars, right? So I've never done this before. I've never tried to sort of hold myself to account in some scoring system. So I worked out different threshold points for 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 star. So is a horse, first off, does it make 1 star, then 2 star, 3 star, 4 star, 5 star? Then what happens if then I vary my bets, so I put more money on a 5 star and then than a 4 than a 3, so on down there. And then by the time I then came back on the channel, I'd had some good data over about a 6-month period that told me, first off, the horses that made the star system versus the ones that didn't performed much better than the ones that didn't. Tick, right, good, that's a nice start. And then there was a difference, but the sample sizes were very small at 5 and 4 star. But the evidence was on the very, very small sample size was that 5 stars were coming out better than 4 and 3 and 2 and 1. But there were some thin lines between them. So when I started back on the channel, I think when I came back, I started using the star system, but I refined it to a 3 star system. So where the horses are 1, 2 or 3 star and varied the stake. And in the evidence of doing the channel at the back end of last year, it made very, very minimal, and I think it was something in the region of 1%, slightly under 1% difference between a 3, a 2 and a 1. And in the percentages I work on, it actually was better to save time and not worry about the difference between a 3, a 2 and a 1, and just whether or not it hits the star criteria or not. So I made some final tweaks, and then this year, everything I've been doing on the channel, where I've stated I've been using star system. The exceptions sometimes are combination double bets, where I've got a slightly different method in there. So when I talk about a star, this is a long ramble, if you're still here, well done. Where I talk about a star horse on the channel is basically I've gone through and it's on my shortlist, and then I've put it through a set of criteria, and it's got above a certain line of point scoring, and if it does that, then I use that as a channel bet. That is basically the star system. Now, to give you a little bit of insight, I've got five different star systems, right? So this is grouping these. So I have one for jumps, handicaps. I've got one for flat turf handicaps, one for all-weather turf handicaps. I've got one for graded races of all flavours, and I've got one for novice and bumper races. Novice, maiden, bumper races, either flat or jumps. I just don't choose to put the flat ones on the channel very often. So those are the 5. So basically, this is what I developed. That I started off with one, and then I quickly realised it was just a bit of a beer moth of different stuff. And actually, if I split it out into different disciplines, there was slightly different criteria I would look to. I also went back through results from the last few years to try and validate the star system. Bit hard because it's harder to track the price movement. But basically validated the horses that I had put up before the star system. If I'd put them through the star system, where would they come out? So on the days where I won nice money, would that bet still exist? The days where I lost and with a bunch of donkeys, would I have even put a bet up on those days? So I also, not only did I work it out last year in 2024, I also validated it because I got years worth of data from horses I've put up, because I keep records of it. So all of the horses that have ever been on the channel are recorded. I mean, they're obviously on a video, but I keep a log of it all. So I was able to validate it in that way. So that's where I got to. So it was an interesting process, and I learned a lot from it, because I never and it's as I've described it, it is manual. Like, I'm sure there are things I can use in AI, and there's people I talk to off the channel about data stuff, and it's interesting what some of them have been experimenting with in terms of algorithms and stuff, and from a data kind of spreadsheets and doing all clever stuff, far more clever than I. I kind of like the manual element of what I do sometimes, because it feels like I'm doing a process, so I get more satisfaction if it comes out the other end, rather than if it was automated. I think I might get less satisfaction, even though it might save me a bit of time. But if it was there's not a way I can do what I do completely automated. It wouldn't work. You wouldn't be able to extract some of the data I'm looking at. Some you would, and some you wouldn't. Some you need to kind of dig a little bit for. So hopefully I've explained that enough that you understand, and it was mildly interesting to somebody. And you never know. Maybe I've inspired one or two of you to think, oh, maybe I'll go and have a look at a bit of rating, because it's interesting. There was quite a few comments on Wednesday about different horses, and I think was it like Twilight Jazz? I think there was a few people mentioned Twilight Jazz running at Beverley, and I absolutely could see the angle they were coming from. I think the horse finished stone last, but I guess it's the kind of horse where historically I might have put on the channel, but it wasn't anywhere near for the channel for me. But I could see why people were talking about it, and the reason being is, again, it's working out what a certain criteria is. So that a big negative on that horse, apart from the fact it was wildly out of form, is the fact that it had a change of trainer, and I mark that down in most cases, unless there's evidence to the contrary. A stable change is not something I like in the terms of what I'm looking for. I'd be less worried about it in a maideny type environment, but in a handicap, I tend to steer clear of them. And it's not to say, there's lots of trainers out there, when you actually look at the stats of if they get a horse that they haven't had before, at what they do with it and that kind of stuff. And there's also, scammy things that go on where people, don't run the horse so well, and then they give it to another trainer, and then people will be knowing that horse is going to run much better for the new trainer because the horse wasn't run to the best effect for the old trainer, and therefore they punt on it with the new trainer. That's a sort of fairly tried and tested route. People will have seen many times over the years in order to sort of go under the radar with something when you give the horse to somebody else and it's better than what is shown. But generally speaking, stable change is something I mark down in terms of my criteria. So short of going through it all with you and doing that, and to be honest, I've got it's not something I would plan to do, because it's very, very complicated, and it makes sense in my head, but it's very complicated. And B, it's great. Some people might go and use that, but there's also other people that might go and also use that, if you know what I mean, for less positive means. So yeah, I'll refer to things, and that's why when I give you an overview of the horses, I touch on things. Sometimes I touch on things that are linked to actually whether I give it a plus or a minus. Other times I'm just telling you things that are interesting about the horse, which actually had no bearing on the ultimate outcome of whether I picked it, but I'm telling you something about it. And so, what I'm actually scoring it on is somewhere in between. Hopefully people understand that, and they understand why I'm saying it like that, because I am slightly talking in riddles. And then the other thing I was going to mention at the end of the channel, if you stayed here, well done. That's half an hour of your life you're never going to get back, is it? Completely unrelated to the horses, right? Just in the last week, I've been watching stuff on YouTube, nothing to do with horse racing, and for most of you, this will go over your head and won't. But if anyone is marginally interested, and if I say beatboxing loopers, right? So that won't mean anything to many people, but some it will do. Just been listening to some of Saro, so Saro, if you're not familiar. It's a French beatbox looper. But yeah, just been listening to it whilst doing the dishes and tidying up the kitchen and stuff. Puts me in a right good mood. So yeah, if you're remotely interested in the words beatbox or looper, and you don't know who Saro is, go and have a look at some of his videos on YouTube and beatbox battles and stuff. And yeah, just amazing, clever skill involved in that. But he is top drawer in that sort of world. All right, there's something you weren't expecting. And for some of you, I mean, it might change your life watching a bit of Sarrow stuff. For others, you don't have a clue what I'm talking about, and you'd rather I've just not made this video so long. All right, that's me. See you on the next one. Bye bye.